Okay, what's going on, everybody? It's Mitch here. Voice of Autism, episode 78. On Monday. Ooh. Oh, quick update on that podcast I will be part of. I'm editing the video to help with podcast that I'm going to be part of with my friend, and the video got corrupted. So me and him and my other friend not Brittany, my bad. An older person, but me and my friend, and Sabrina, which she also has her own YouTube channel. Same with my other friend that I was doing broadcast with. He is the one who will be posting the video on his channel, but I was editing the parts out, and that we don't want in there, but the video got corrupted. Blah. I ran out of space on here, and I don't have enough space on my phone. Like, literally, I don't want to lose space on here, because I do use my tablet a lot. So, yeah. But, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think about it. I got to work. It should help. Well, but I'm running out of like space on here, and I need to get another SD card for my tablet. Because, one, I don't know why, but I think because of miscellaneous items, every time when my game once or something was going on, the miscellaneous would get me. And I would never know why. But yeah, when I'm wearing my Union Pacific 484 Big Boy shirt today. So, yeah. I'm a little bit tired, so, yeah. But, crazy. I'm also thinking about getting a haircut this weekend, but I said never mind about that. I gotta start working on stuff on it, but I don't understand why I've been doing it, but it's something that's been going on lately. But yeah. Also, me and my fiance Belle are doing great. This week is her last week of testing and all that before they get out. One thing I did get concerned with is her being overworked. Because she do overwork. In a way, but yeah. But everybody do that. When they, when they think about it, but yeah. But, it beat me. Now. But yeah, now my fiance and her BFF Sasha will all yell everything. And 4 days from now, on Monday, let's see, it'll be on Thursday, or technically hump day, where they'll be pulling around 12 p.m. their time at 12 a.m. my time, but I might be getting an early copy because I might be doing a reaction video of it. So yes, I am doing a reaction video of my fiance and her BFF also doing a singing video. So that's gonna be interesting. But it might be pretty odd how I do it. Because I might be either doing it from my tablet or my phone. But I gotta figure, how in a way I'm going to do it. But yeah. But I got a lot on my mind. To think about it. Well, I've been talking to my fellow Aspies, or fellow YouTubers, autistic YouTubers who are on the spectrum. And it's mind blowing, But yeah. That cut it way too close. Well, let me. There we go. But it's a crazy, crazy time. It really is. Oh, and I got something to talk about that I think it's the right time to bring it up, and a good fuse up. It's just, if you ever went from my live stream last week where I went into how that thing got me aggravated on that person, this person did their own post. Oh, sorry about dogs. No. 1 minute. Just wait until. I'm sorry about dogs. It won't put until somebody go in there and scold them or, scare them through, but I'm not the person. But yeah, they're going off. 1 minute. Be right back, guys.
Barking at?
Okay, guys.
Shut it up.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Dogs were going off again. But yeah. Now let me get back to the article where it called the person out for who they really are. Well, I find the person who did that post that got me aggravated on live stream last week. I find that person a scumbag and a harm for the autism community. And this person did a reaction post talking about how wrong the person is and how dangerous they are. So this is a follow-up from last week where I kind of dropped a few of the F-bombs. So yeah, that would probably be your guy first hit of me ever cussing and dropping an F-bomb on video. So, and the reason why was because of how propaganda-like and how messed up that post was. Literally. When something that is so made up and propaganda-like that make people in our community look bad, there's no way in hell I would put it up with it. Because of how disgusting it really is. If you just think about it. Oh, and from my video blog update from a few days ago about the HO transit, yeah, Anthony was one who got me for president for people who still don't believe me. So yeah, he was one who got me it. There we go, got it. But yeah, he was one who got me it. For play. I gotta figure out how to play my game without my sound was getting, too much, with losing storage. But it's something I gotta think about now again. So yeah.
A response to Eileen Lamb's article, Autism and the Dangers of the Neurodiversity Movement, 27 minutes read. By the ASPERGIAN. A response to Eileen Lamb's article, Autism and the Dangers of the Neurodiversity Movement, 27 minutes read. By the ASP.
Give a response to that article that we went into from last week.
By the ASPERGIAN. Posted on May 10, 2019. This article is long. It used to be longer. The original intro is now its own article exploring the division between neurodiversity advocates and everyone else. It can be viewed by clicking here. Instead of pointing fingers at anyone or laying blame anywhere, this article has one aim, to demonstrate how autistic people would read Eileen Lamb's article. The author of this article is listed as the Aspergen. We have over 100 contributors, and behind the scenes, we have discussed this article at length. While we certainly don't speak for all autistic people, we are a very representative sample of people at all points on the spectrum. So, while there are going to be a few autistic people who will disagree with this article, the comments will likely indicate how the vast majority of autistic people would react to Lamb's Autism and the Dangers of the Neurodiversity Movement. It begins. Before Lamb even starts into her article, there's a plug for her upcoming book. Autistic people are already going to be reacting with suspicion to this because if someone is selling something, then they have a motive. Information sharing and facts are sacred to us. If you'll notice, there are no ads on the Aspergen. We sell no merchandise. There are no fees to access our materials. Our contributors are volunteers. There's a reason for this, and it's probably a major contributing factor to why 85% of autistics with at least a 4-year university degree are unemployed. We are not salespeople in personality so much as we are scientists. We like to present the information and have it stand on its own. A person who will sell something under the headline of a sensationalized title related to an extremely vulnerable population is already someone autistic people don't trust. We are critical thinkers. We have to know why someone does something. Exploitation is a cardinal offense which is dramatically against our neurology and our values. The AUT in autistic has the same root as autonomy for a reason. We value personal autonomy and privacy highly, and that goes for all persons, no matter the age or ability level. Our neurotypical parents, teachers, and employers don't always love our reluctance to perceive or respect ranks. This contrast is one way neurotypical and autistic parents tend to differ in parenting styles and philosophies. Because we're not as predisposed to social ranks, it's not as important to autistics for our children to be normal. Overwhelmingly, we embrace difference and value it. We like differences. A massively relevant disclaimer. Autistic people are hard on each other. We aren't polite and don't sugarcoat so much in the insider community. Our communication styles are intimidating to neurotypicals, so we change our approach and try to soften our speech for them. But when we confront each other, there is little instinct to be polite. And the world compares autistic people. We are rare in the general population, so the whole of us are judged by the actions of whichever autistic person someone knows. Because of this, we tend to be ruthless about keeping each other righteous. Lamb knows this. So let's break down Lamb's article a piece at a time. This is a post I've been meaning to write for a while but didn't. I couldn't. Partially because I was scared of the backlash, partially because this topic makes me feel deep emotions that I don't like dealing with, from feeling angry to sad and everything in between. Today I want to shed some light on the dangers of the neurodiversity movement. Eileen, the writer of controversy. Scared of the backlash. This is not language that is natural to autistics. It sets off alarm bells to us. We do not prioritize our own emotions over logic, and we don't talk about our emotions in the same way as neurotypicals. If we do, we're acting. We talk about what is fair and just instead of the emotional collateral of something. This seems like language that isn't ours. It's not relatable to us. It's one reason that we often are misinterpreted by non-autistic people as being unfeeling or rationalizing. We feel intensely, but our values come before those emotions. We also don't generalize like this. A movement is not an organization with a set of guiding principles. It's a direction towards a goal that many people want to see happen. The individuals participating in a movement are not representatives of the movement. Also, to be scared of autistic people is very against autistic values, too. Autistic people are under extreme threat, and being talked to harshly on the internet is not high on the list. Other autistic people are not our enemies. People, period, aren't our enemies. Principles and practices, systems and institutions are our enemies.
Not true.
Lamb then posts a series of Twitter messages from autistic people. Most of the comments are noble. Some are a bit cringe-worthy. He's a human being. You're grotesque. It makes you a horrible parent if your autistic kid knows you're grieving for a non-autistic child you never had. If you hear about child abuse, rape, or murder, you probably feel extreme ways about the person who committed those offenses. To autistic people, regarding your autistic child as a disappointment or someone to grieve, exploiting their autism for emotional validation or product placement, and sharing the dehumanizing details parents often share about autistic children as a cardinal offense. A lot of autistic adults, probably the majority, can tell you what it was like to be the scapegoat child and the disappointment in a family of non-autistics, which is why we are so intent on helping parents to not make those same mistakes. Making money from autism by exploiting everyone. Autistic people know that most neurotypicals see autism as a tragedy, and that's unfortunate. Autism is only a tragedy in tragic contexts. In many contexts, it's an asset and a bliss. In the autistic community, our relationships are formed quickly, they are profound without any layers of social plastic, and we love and connect intensely. We are instant family. The reason this happens is we have been on the other side of the world, isolated, where no one understands us and where traits that are prized and valued in our community are seen as deficits and mourned in the broader world. We relate, and that's rare before we find our way into the community. We know, better than anyone, how it feels when family members aren't relating and bonding in a natural way with their autistic loved ones. For allistics to relate requires them to go uncomfortably against their neurology and do things that feel counterintuitive. To a neurotypical person, not making eye contact and not verbalizing emotions or cuddling feels like a failure to connect. Conversely, to an autistic person, forcing eye contact feels like agreeing to be someone else in order to make others feel comfortable. Autistic people feel hopelessly sad when others fail to understand the deep emotional connection and relevance of their special interests and how those things serve as complex metaphors for something deeper. Those statements of fact don't have spoken emotion in them, but it's implied and provides a context to discuss the abstract and find the patterns in human behavior and experience. Autistic people badly want to help non-autistic people understand their children. It's literally of life and death importance and will increase the happiness of parents and their children. But autistic people communicate with intensity. They get frustrated by needing to say the same things over and over. They're traumatized. They don't want to repeat what parents should, in autistic perspectives, already know, that autistic people are not broken neurotypicals. They're different altogether in many ways, and that's okay. It has to be. Eileen Lamb knows this. She knows at a sophisticated level of nuance exactly why neurotypical parents grieve and exactly what they want to hear. She also knows at a sophisticated level of nuance exactly why autistic people are so desperate to be heard and are so passionately intense. And she knows how to provoke autistics with just the right words to elicit an emotional response from them. This whole article is a compendium of that. She also is fully aware that neurotypical people don't understand or know about the complexities and the work of the autistic community to make strides in acceptance and human rights for autistics. So she speaks the language of the neurotypical. She exploits them too. She sends the message, I'm a mommy like you, just a little awkward, and I'm autistic. Everything you're saying is okay. Those autistic activists are crazy and mean bullies. Keep doing what you're doing, and while you're at it, buy this product from my sponsors. The point, autistic people don't believe Eileen, or any autistic person, feels they can't communicate non-verbally with another autistic person. We can. And the right thing to do is teach non-autistic parents how to speak the language of their autistic children. Buy this product from my sponsors. Eileen Lamb is a brand. She's a business managed by Shine Influencers. She advertises products in the guise of personal blogs like her book, which is scheduled to come out soon. Or Ball Mason Jars, the portal from Facebook, Maddie's Natural Health Drinks, or Vibes Earplugs. If it's relevant to the product, she starts her blogs with something like, I'm a mother to a severely autistic child. Then, she uses her son's private struggles to sell products like the goalie scheduling device to pair with ABBA therapy and the Vibes earplugs.
Yeah.
To even mention her son
Disgusting.
to us feels like a disservice to her child and a violation of his privacy. In one blog,
It is a violation and it's disgusting. I'd say if I were a DHEC or a cop or the governor, I would take that kid straight from her, put her in prison, you know? So a person like her is a threat to the autism community. Yeah. So, yeah. And it might sound crazy, but go back to World War II. Or wait for that. There were Jews that are part of the Nazi party that we did the exact same thing to their own people, make them look bad. With one thing that caused the Holocaust, there were a ton of factors, but that was one of the reasons why. There are multiple, so it's exactly in the same category of that. So yeah.
blog is to sell Kenny's waterproof bed pads and training pants. She photographs her 6-year-old son in his training underwear for the blog. To autistic people, many of whom as college-educated adults still sometimes experience occasional incontinence, this is unconscionable. It's a private and embarrassing medical condition associated with sensory processing disorder. What is going to happen when his school-aged peers see that he's been wetting the bed or wearing potty training underwear? How will he feel about this when he's an adult? And autistic people are harder on Lamb because she says she is autistic. She knows what she does is extremely offensive to autistic values and that autistic people find it harmful. Instead of course correcting, though, she found a way to monetize the conflicts between autistic people and neurotypicals by using herself as confirmation bias. If Eileen Lamb, the autistic person, says it's okay, then it must be okay. It's not okay. But moving along. What's the neurodiversity movement? Lamb's next portion of her article asks what the neurodiversity movement is. Here's a quote from the blog. What is this thing, you may ask? At first glance it seems like a good idea. Autistic individuals fighting to get autism recognized is something to not be ashamed of, fighting for autistics to not be seen as less than and not bullied. Cool, right? Of course. I'm all for that. Charlie, me, and all autistic people, we are just as cool and worthy of being loved and respected as anyone else. Autistic people are rolling their eyes at this point. We know what's coming next. Here's where it gets tricky. The majority neurodiversity proponents that you can find under the hashtag #actuallyautistic are extremists. Not only are their views on autism harmful, but the vocal ones, in my experience, have been very vicious and constantly attack autism parents and autistic adults who disagree with them on social media. I'd go as far as to call it harassment in many instances. But here, I'll try to go through each of their arguments separately. What the hell? Actually autistic is a way of signaling on social media that you are actually autistic. That is literally all it means. To claim that the majority of autistic people using that hashtag are extremists is to say that autistics are mostly radical bullies. She has established herself as the safe, relatable autistic woman to attempt to bias parents and loved ones of autistic people to not trust or listen to other autistic adults and teens. She painted autistic people as monsters. We're not. The vocal ones. You mean the ones trying hardest to make things better for people with disabilities. Autistic people do not constantly attack people who disagree with them on social media. It's fair to say many of us are blunt, but our attacks are not attacks on people, they're attacks on oppression. Sometimes people
Mm-hmm.
are oppressive, and they get called out in all manner of colorful language. Eileen Lamb hears from autistic people all the time because she is purposefully provocative.
That's true.
Most of us at the Aspergen had never heard of Eileen Lamb until she called out one of our contributors. So we responded to her article on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Apple Eileen, if you're into this, you're a toxic, naughty, wisdom, lying bitch. You you backstab, you betrayed your own community. You're no worse than a Nazi. So, Eileen, to go out for you, you have now been fitly branded as Nazi by me. So yeah, you don't like it, then deal with the consequences. You lied. You put people like that in danger. You did like those Jews who support the Nazi and make their own kind look bad. Yeah, I'm calling you out for that. And yes, there were Jews who were part of the Nazi party who made our Jews look bad, but wanted James that were part of the Holocaust. And the reason why I know this, because one of my friend's great grandfather, he in his 80 now, he survived the Holocaust, and he said there were Jews out there who were part of the literally, and I mean part of the Nazi party. So that's the reason why I know. So I win. You're a fucking Nazi in my book. You done so many stuff wrong, and you should be a damn shame of yourself if you're witnessing it. So yeah, not good. But literally, and trying to make people in our community look bad, you're a disgusting bastard, and you're not human. You're technically a monster for that. And supporting trying to get rid of autism, one, if you manage that, you can kill all the stuff that you like around you, goodbye. Your technology, your game, stuff that you love, the most of it was invented by people who were on the autism spectrum. So I would like to go to a world that don't have autism and see how bad it is. And literally, hmm, but yeah, just think about it. But it's disgusting. Like, you get my blood boiling. The people like that, they should be damn ashamed with themselves. Because literally, it messed up. Using demon propaganda. Now let's go down to the rest of it because that's not all of it. Because their whole crew have extra stuff talking about how bull crap it is. You know? God, she was caught red-handed bullcrap lying to our community. But people like that, I'm surprised that they, you know. Ah, didn't know everything every time when I tried to get everything working. So give me 15 minutes, but bullcrap scene is that it's stuff that we deal with on a daily basis with people like her. She lied. It's the exact same thing as some of the Jews who part of the Nazi party against their own kind. Like there were Jews who actually used to do the exact same thing like she is against Jewish people. And it's messed up and disturbing. And the only reason why I know that is because I have a friend, like I said earlier, who have a great-great-grandfather or so. But it's been a while since you know, but he in his 80s or 90 now, who survived the Holocaust. And he said the exact same stuff that I'm saying, that there were Jews out there who made every other Jew look bad and was part of the Nazi party. So yeah, but just think about it. You have people out there who are supporting something so disgusting, so humane. It just disgusts the hell out of me. Now I'm going to see God. But yeah, taking it. Yeah, I went a little bit up. Hmm. But yeah, it kind of messed up. Okay, copy now. There might be speak over from this part, but I didn't know a different part of the, you know.
Most of us at the Aspergen had never heard of Eileen. This got us banned. But the people she's swearing at and provoking to swearing aren't being banned. This is because she needs more fodder for her screenshot collection, we presume. What's ironic is that she's the dog whistler for the autistic dark web, ADW, a very small, very radical, extremist group of people who claim to be autistic and some parents of autistic children. ADW is widely regarded as a hate group. They relentlessly attack and troll autistic people on social media, especially those who are vulnerable. They discuss women's looks, promote incel ideology, and are alt-right extremists in beliefs. Some of Lamb's most dedicated followers are among their ranks. Here are some screenshots from the autistic dark web, since she is so against trolls and vile online comments from bullies. Eugenics, much. Then there's this little nugget to someone Eileen Lamb tweeted today. But you blocked the aspersion on Twitter, Eileen. Then, Eileen makes a post on her page with screenshots of the attacks against her. It's mind-boggling what she finds to be attacks. Well, yeah, those aren't attacks. Attacks are not reactions. Attacks are first strikes. Attacks are against a person, not against beliefs or actions. Someone needs to teach Eileen the difference between attacks and responses. Eileen is the attacker. Those are benevolent truths. Autistic people know the consequences of what happens when parents don't better understand their children's behaviors and communication styles, even nonverbal communication. The Aspergen hears from parents all the time who are lamenting that they wish they had the information we share when their children were younger, and they feel terrible about their choices. Sometimes, it's too late, and their children are permanently estranged or no longer living. We want to help. Desperately. This is why we're so passionate, because we have seen a big picture that isn't pretty, and we want to save as many people from those realities as possible. Here are some quotes from some non-autistic parents and loved ones about how learning from autistic people helped them relate to their loved ones. I found it really helpful to read perspectives from autistic adults because they are able to describe the kinds of experiences my son has in a much clearer way than a child can. He is still figuring life out and has needs, but isn't always able to describe his feelings or know what he needs to help in a situation. Adults who have had lots of time to learn about themselves can give a lot of really helpful ideas about supports. Also, I can learn from others' experiences and try not to repeat the mistakes of previous generations. Lisa Rose, mom to 10-year-old autistic son, USA. I feel more confident as a parent because of the feedback I've gotten from autistic adults. I was able to let go of the fear-mongering and doom and gloom mindset that I felt in the early stages. Too many professionals made me feel like there wasn't hope for the future. Autistic adults changed that. Holly, 30, mother to 5-year-old autistic son.
They did that exact same thing to me when I was younger, but they were completely opposite from me.
Reached out to autistic adults for assistance with my recently diagnosed 2.5-year-old. He stims by hitting his head, and since we live in an apartment, our downstairs neighbor was complaining about the noise. It is also hard to watch your child hit his head that hard to go to sleep or deal with too much sensory input. Autistic adults were able to give me similar stims to redirect him instead of head banging. He now swings in a quilt and asks for that instead of banging his head. Without the help of autistic people, I don't know if we would have found a safe way to redirect his head banging so quickly. The members understood why he did it and knew what substitutes may be best instead of trying a million different things recommended by his therapists, who are great but don't always have the same insight. Samantha, mom to a 2-year-old autistic son, USA. My son has autism with PDA, pathological demand avoidance. I totally had to learn a new way of thinking, reducing demands, how I worded things. I tended to use a lot of idioms. Could what I say be misinterpreted? Use of humor. When his anxiety was building up, how could I bring it down? Learned a new language with words like proprioception, interception, and synesthesia. My son, 9 years, and I are trying to work things together. I make mistakes still, but I apologize immediately. We try and follow a peaceful parenting approach. I've learned that he needs to know he's loved, especially as he had a hard time at school. We home educate as he can't cope in mainstream, and the SEND schools in our area don't really get PDA. Hairless Cheshire mom of a 9-year-old autistic PDAER. I looked to autistic adults for insight when I realized how much they understood and related to my kids. I wanted to understand like they did. I have learned so much to help my kids. What I wasn't expecting was how much my perspective changed, which is way more than I was looking for or expecting. Life-changing. Very thankful. Nancy, California, USA. Mom to 2 amazing autistics, ages 17 and 21. As a child, I could see someone in distress. I would sit with them quietly until they could let me know what they needed. My autistic brother taught me this. I gained a better relationship with my brother as a child, sitting and playing a football manager game that I had no interest in than any other activities. I learned to meet people where they were to build a connection, and that is such a valuable skill for life.
True.
My brother, who was resigned by professionals to needing to be institutionalized for life, influenced so much of my life and has gone on to live a very full life of his own. I went on to work with autistic people. I built great relationships because I listened to them and they to me. Respect doesn't cost anything. It shouldn't be lost because of a stereotype or a label. My own autistic child has grown up in open discussions. He's been enabled because I've asked the questions, listened to the answers no matter how it's been communicated, and I continue to listen to autistic voices because they're important, because they come from experience, because a person's communication is valuable to human connection.
That's true.
Why wouldn't you want a connection with someone who sees the world differently from you? For every parent who has battled with a child's tantrums or meltdowns, no matter their neurology, for every professional who has seen someone struggling and wondered how to help, for every person who has a problem and can't find an answer, for every walk of life there is a lesson to be learned. Learn how to listen, learn how to be there without imposing, learn patience, learn valuable life skills. Sally, UK. I've always believed kids were worth listening to, but hearing how differently autistic people experience the world made me know that in order to be a good mom, I have to listen to how my son experiences the world. Otherwise, I can't help him with his specific struggles or make him feel supported. Also, I really appreciate the autistic people who explain why ABBA isn't good. D. Mom to an autistic son, USA. I was introduced to a social media group as mother with a 4-year-old who was recently diagnosed as autistic. The experts strongly suggested ABBA therapy, as it may be the difference between my son ever having his independence or not. I was, of course, blindly chasing ABBA therapy. Autistic adults have given me another perspective, the one that will probably most closely match how my son will feel in 10, 15, or 20 years, a perspective that encouraged me to use my own critical thinking and logic. A perspective that may have saved my relationship with my son, his own self-esteem, and my pride as a mother. While sometimes it is hard, I always want to believe I know what is best for my children. I have learned so much about parenting my son. And I learned from people who didn't study a book but actually walked the road my son is on, and they are advocating for him to have better than they have had themselves. Lacey S., mother of an autistic son, Oregon, USA. You get the point. Hopefully, you also get the point that non-autistic parents are allowed to talk about autism. Moving along with Eileen's blog, she goes into a list of things neurodiversity proponents believe. I'll quote them if you can stomach it. Parents shouldn't be allowed to speak about autism. Said no neurodiversity advocate ever, at least none that our members have ever heard. Let's see how many times people have said that. So one person said that, and it was Eileen Lamb. Then, Lamb goes on to cite one of our contributors, Krista Holmans, also known as Neurodivergent Rebel, after Eileen has claimed autistics are hostile and exclude people who express any morsel of negativity about autism, deeming them martyr moms. The thing is, martyr moms are defined in Krista's post, which Eileen screenshots. Does Eileen really think her readers can't read? Is Eileen cashing in on the fact that people will just blindly believe her accusations when she literally posts evidence which demonstrates the opposite of what she claims? Here it is. It doesn't take a gestalt leap to see why this would offend Eileen. As long as a mom doesn't build her whole identity around her child's autism, then she's not a martyr mom. In fact, Krista has started groups for neurotypical allies. But Eileen proudly hashtags #martyrmom on social media. She also hashtags #NetCult. She paints neurodiversity proponents, NDs and NTs, as a cult. Classy, Eileen. Let's look at some traits of cult leaders. Garners a following by encouraging rebellion against an established group by villainizing the established group. Exploits others for money or sympathy. Manages cult following by playing a victim. Hypersensitive about managing how others see them, their image or public persona. Feels entitled to praise and sympathy. Becomes angry and insulting when challenged. Exiles or outcasts, punishes those who challenge them. Hypersensitive to criticism. Theatrical and hyperbolic to establish self as the center of attention. Communication is one way and does not listen to or respect others' communication. Makes an enemy out of those who criticize. Ranks people as superior and inferior and denies those deemed inferior a voice or autonomy. Closely monitors communications and manages public information. Uses platform to advance an agenda. Uses agenda to advance power, money. Is expert at playing the martyr to solidify a following. Isolates the group from the mainstream. Makes self appear different from others like an acceptable everyman. Uses sycophants and fans to do their dirty work. Tailors leadership to draw in people with low self-esteem or those who are vulnerable. Promotes an us vs them mentality and insists that others started the fight. Shows love and affection to those who most strongly support them. Distorts facts and truths to create a narrative of victimhood. Provides members with the illusion that they are doing everything right and only there will they be validated. Creates a belief system that employs exploitation and confirmation bias of the prejudices, insecurities, and fears of followers. Does not accept responsibility or only issues passive-aggressive apologies. Her second point, severe autism.
That all true about Eileen. And here's something that most people don't know. No. Somebody else, if you know from World War II, who was the leader of Germany, Adolf Hitler, he was actually Jewish. He was actually part Jew. So technically, he technically killed half his own kind. So think about that. Eileen is the exact same thing. She is no worse than a Nazi. And she's technically a bad guy. She's technically a murder mom. And Eileen, you're a damn liar. You are a disgrace to the autism community. You are a Nazi, a menace to society, for literally making people on autism spectrum look bad, making it look like we have doom and gloom. So, I already have talked to one of the people I'm part of, or people I know who work for Inca. And Eileen, you are banned from Inca. You are banned from the Autistic Self-Advocacy Group. You're banned from both of them because I notified them, told them about you. So, you have been banned, you menace, because you are a menace to the autism community. And I hope you burn in hell when you go die. So, when you die, burn in hell for all bad stuff you did to the autism community.
Doesn't exist. We have a ton of articles about this already, but the best place to start if you want to learn why autistics counter the word severe is this article about what the spectrum really means. Eileen knows about autism and that it's a lot more complicated than being verbal or not, but she banks on, pun intended, as in, makes money from, the fact that most non-autistic people don't understand what autistic neurology really means. She is using her son as an ambassador of difficulty and proof that autistic people can be severe because they can't care for themselves and he's 6 years old. Eileen says, repeatedly, that Charlie can't communicate at all. This really bothers autistics because everyone communicates. There are an infinite number of ways to communicate which don't require words. Our contributors can tell you about some of those ways. Note, non-autistic mothers, that clear autism is not autistic. That is a neurotypical mother of an autistic child. Autistic people love her too. Lamb is the one who makes an enemy out of people who disagree. Yet, in lots of her blogs, Lamb describes Charlie communicating just fine. When he repeats words his dad tells him to say, he gets excited and claps. That's communication. The frustration and meltdowns he experiences that she puts on blast, that's communication, too. Lamb has since deleted that interchange, though. Presumably because it would look bad for this reason. She's engineered quite a dramatic, sensationalized saga of victimhood versus bully. And she sure knows how to get attention. She wants WAPO to advertise her book, too. But she mentions ABBA so many times, the Aspergen is beginning to wonder if she is sponsored by an ABBA provider. There sure are a lot of ABBA services and behavior analysts sharing her posts. We know that she ties in ABBA with products she peddles on her blog, but is her motive to throw that keyword in there just for search engine optimization, or she is in bed with factions of the multi-billion-dollar worldwide ABBA monopoly? We also believe that at ABBA4all_UC is a front for autistic dark web. Look how they talk to autistic parents. We've put out a request for information from her employer, Shine Influencers, but haven't yet heard back. So we've filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the Federal Trade Commission. We'll let you know something as soon as we know something. Eileen's next point. Autism is not a disability, it's a gift. They don't see autism as a disability, so they don't see a need for medical research, therapy, or a cure. Totally their choice. If there were a cure, I'd take it for myself. I'm high functioning, but autism affects me in ways that hinder my own happiness. ND activists call people in favor of a cure ableist, eugenists, sick, and Nazis.
They are.
Sick, they fail to realize that for many autistics, autism is a severe impairment. There are many autistics with self-injurious behaviors, no way of communicating, whether verbal or nonverbal, and no self-care abilities. For these people, the chances of living an independent life are close to zero. The hashtag #ActuallyAutistic sick speak from a place of privilege of being able to speak about their views online. Some see autism as both a difference and a disability. Eileen Lamb, the new Karen. I have never met someone who says that autism isn't a disability, at least some of the time.
It's not.
They say that it is a difference and not a disease. Because it's not a disease. It's often a disability, especially depending on the environment and demands an autistic person has to meet. Neurodivergence is how someone's brain is wired. Some parts are more developed and some are less developed than a typical brain. Some parts are more connected, some are less. Some things are processed in different parts of the brain for autistic people. This produces a different profile of the brain with different strengths and weaknesses from the majority. A cure would mean that someone is able to rewire a brain and to cause some cortices to be more developed and some to be less developed. Look at this graphic demonstrating language processing differences in two subtypes of autism. Research from Duffy, Shankard-Ask, McAnulty, and AL's 2013. See how the brain on the left, factors 15 and 33, is processing language in the upper right quadrants. How would one cure this person, since that's a fundamental trait of his or her autism? Damage the right brain. Remove that cortex and implant it in the left. See how, again on the left, factor 15, there is no connectivity on the two left quadrants. How does one cure that, or why even would they want to? People with brains like this are often prolific writers. There can be benefits to having limited or no connectivity for some processes and tasks. It means simultaneously processing information in different parts of the brain in different ways. It's a whole different way to exist from the norm, but it isn't always negative. See how absurd the cure talk is. One doesn't need to be a scientist to understand that brains cannot be cured of their way of function.
That's true.
People with neurodivergent brains are valuable to society. Extremely. They always have been. Autistics were responsible for some of humanity's greatest inventions, art, literature, music, and innovations.
True.
These differences are disabling in some contexts and assets in others. But there is a 0% chance that a neurodivergent person's brain can be rearranged, reconnected, and differently developed. Even if this were possible, it would change that person's core self. So the neurodiversity movement is about asking people to accept these differences and to embrace the positives and accommodate the negatives. Sometimes, as with any disability, the impact these differences has on a person is devastating. Often, the devastation is more a result of intolerance than of any natural deficit. If a neurodiverse person experiences pain and overstimulation from fluorescent lights, then it is a simple fix to change the lights to LED. Environments are easier to rearrange and change than brains. It should be easier to change perspectives and expectations than it is to reform a person's literal brain.
That's true.
You can't love your child if you don't like autism. This is Eileen's next point. I really wish people understood that you can be sad about your child being severely disabled and still love him with every fiber of your being. Alas, they don't. I love Charlie so much, and everyone who knows me know that is true. But if I could take his pain away and give me a way to communicate, I'd do it in heartbeat. I hate autism often. My autism. And Charlie's autism. It's fine if you like your autism, but don't attack people who don't. Eileen WHO hates her autism. Strawman Eileen is at it again. She missed her calling with Hallmark cards. Next sponsor. No one sane has a problem with someone being upset when his or her child suffers. It's lamenting and grieving, in a public way, that you didn't get the child you wanted. That is a problem. Wishing to remove someone's autism is wishing to remove their core self. It's not separable. Removing someone's arms and legs is not removing their identity or self or personality. Removing their gallbladder, a kidney, and a lung will not remove their core self. A heart transplant does not change someone's core self. To remove someone's autism, you would have to remove their brain. Since that isn't possible, making a living or social structure centered around complaining about someone else's disability and how it impacts you is, well, just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
ABBA therapy is torture. True dat, Eileen. We have some articles on ABBA. You can read them here. We really don't need to reinvent that wheel. But, she goes on to say, there are more issues about which I disagree with them. For instance, they think the puzzle piece symbol is harmful, as well as functioning labels and the terminology person with
It
autism.
is.
Basically, they're mad at the world and bully everyone who disagrees with them. Eileen the instigator. Y'all, seriously. This literally is hilarious, like she is writing a parody. She has put every single talking point here to drum up as much drama and harvest as many screenshots as she can. Is someone paying her for them?
Okay, that another part of it. Like, did give me a payment because, like, but Eileen, she is a disgusting person. Like, what are we? She is a danger to the autism community. Anyway, just picture it. Picture yourself that you put people in the autism community through. Like, what are we? She is a threat. But we're not done yet with Eileen. Okay, we're at the last bit of it.
Autistics bully people for disagreeing with them. I could have sworn that I've read a good couple hundred articles about how much more often autistics are bullied than neurotypicals, but Eileen isn't concerned with facts. Please share. It's time to speak up for those who can't. This is Eileen's last subheading. She implores her audience to share what autistics see. Please share. It's time to make autistics mad so I can sell more books and sponsored products to gullible neurotypical parents. She closes with this, like an altar call from a fiery televangelist with autistic interpretations in bold. I know it sucks and you may be afraid of repercussions, you may be afraid blunt people will disagree with you, but if you agree that autism is a disability, that's all of us. Eileen, if you agree that severe autism exists, I'm severe AF. Eileen, if you agree that ABBA therapy is useful for casinos and advertisements, and not abusive, and that parents should be allowed to speak about autism, then share, promote my book for me. While people who know about autism understands that hashtag actually autistic views comprise a minority, the rest of the population doesn't because the hashtag actually autistish sick voices are so loud. Hell yeah. We take the risk that autism will be misrepresented and misunderstood even more than it is now. Wait, autism will be misrepresented by autistic folk. You need to enlist non-autistic majorities to help you represent autism. What the hell kind of sense does that make? Severe autism exists. I see it every day. Let's overpower this dangerous neurodiversity movement. Overpower autistic people. Too late there, Eileen. We wouldn't need a movement if we had more power. Dangerous to what? Your ego. Book sales. P-pad sales. I know we are a silent majority, a silent majority. Are you seriously making the majority out to be the victims, Culty McCulterson? But because of the bullying the hashtag actually autistic community is putting us through, many of you have chosen to stay quiet. I get it, guys. I do. Red, you're easy bait for me if I pretend to give you emotional validation. Free publicity. It's hard to get insulted online. So hard, it affects me too, but we've entered a vicious cycle. We need to speak up. I need you. Autistics who don't have the luxury to speak or express themselves on social media need you. Be the hero for people who never asked you to be the hero, because my luxury hotel sponsorships depend on it. You've got this. We can do this together. Speak up. Real talk. And she finishes with some links from her sycophants, the hate group that is the autistic dark web. Make no mistake, the ADW is attempting to use their diminutive numbers to upend the neurodiversity movement. Eileen publishes 3 incendiary articles on 3 hot-button topics in 3 days to whip up a frenzy of a publicity stunt. They're working hard at it, bless their hearts. Autistic people and their allies are feeling unsafe right now and afraid to use social media because of these people.
I'm not afraid.
So,
I'm
Eileen from the
speaking up.
Aspergen, you are officially the new Karen. If you're being harassed by the autistic dark web, please contact the Aspergen. We are just getting started with this story.
If they attack me, I'm going to take a picture and send it to the Aspen. Send it to Inca. Send it to self-advocacy group. Send it to all of them, make everybody realize how sick and disgusting she is. I'm the wrong person to mess with, so if she tried to attack me, there's going to be a world of hurt, and I really mean it. The one, you're screwing with somebody who have German blood in them. Me. Yeah, my grandma's German. 2, I have a friend who is Jew who had a grandpa who was nearly 90 who survived the Holocaust who is Jewish. And 3, I talked to him before and he said, except that we autistic are going through, it's the same thing that they went through. So, Karen and the other person, if I can't remember, and people who are in the dark web group, or the Autism dark web, I hope you guys don't mess with me, because if you do, you're going through a rabbit hole that you don't want to mess with. Because I'm the wrong person to mess with, because I got a lot of connections, and when you do that, you're screwing yourself. So if I was smart up at you, I would just go back in your hole and shut your trap. I mean it. So if you don't want anything bad to happen, go into your home and shut your trap. Because 1, you're met with the wrong person when it comes to me. 2, I'm part of International Autism Group. 3, I got connected to bigger YouTubers. And 4, I have friends in high places. So, you people who done crimes in the group didn't know, I will probably take you down. First, I've been screwed by my fiance from 8 days ago. From 8 days ago.
After a sudden exploration here in Glorietta, I got into this instant thinking of trying this one-time complimentary photo shoot with Sweet Escape to celebrate the Mother's Day. However, I wasn't prepared for the shoot. I was honestly on doubts if I look good or what. Well, I must admit that I have to improve more with my physique. Special thanks to its Sweet Escape.
Well, that will not provide Jane for my fiance per se, but she does look amazing. That's my fiance. But yeah, she done an amazing job. So yeah. You're another one from my fiance, Belle. But yeah.
When the lights are your infinite guidance towards good life, you're welcome to receive the blessing. Smiling face with halo. Special thanks to at Sweet Escape. Escape. May 12, 2019.
That one from my fiance. Here's the next one from my fiance, Belle. But yeah.
Dearest me, I'm shining like these beautiful lights. Lights brightens up my day, it nourished me from my weaker state. I am ready face these lights of love, for there is fear, I can conquer them. There is light of hope for where my doubts have been redeemed to a better opportunity. There is hope for learning things out of passionate mind and heart. There is There's life full of chances, for there are missed chances. There's a new door for a new chance of living a better life. What more can I ask? I am loved, inspired, and most of all, these lights are with me. Smiling face with hard eyes. Special thanks to Sweetscape. This was taken last May 12, 2019, Mother's Day. Hashtag Autism Life. Autism living, hashtag Autism love, hashtag Autism acceptance.
And that was from my fiance, Velbaria. But I do have her YouTube channel down at link down below if you guys want to go to her YouTube channel. Now here's something else that I have to agree with, but what I've seen. But yeah. If you guys remember my video that I did on May the 4th, that I still get laughed out, but really, I call that part now for who they really are. The artist gets a cussing for who they really are. They lied to the people. See, and the group that you part of is no worse than the Nazis. See, exactly one. So Eileen and your supporter of the autism dark web are not really autistic, you are anti, try to bring doom and gloom. I hope you all burn in hell. I really do.
Open letter, dear autism parent. Submitted by Janine on Saturday, the 18th of May 20. Dear autism parent. When I found out that my son was autistic, it changed my world. I didn't know anything about autism at that point. I and his dad wanted to know as much as we could find out. What support could I get? It seemed that I wasn't going to be given that information readily. We had to find out about and fight for every bit of support, benefits, help at school, respite, and more. So go into battle. If at first you don't get what you need, appeal. There are people and organizations which can help you do this. The little support that existed for autistic kids and adults and their parents has been hacked away by years of Tory austerity cuts. If we fight not just our own individual battles but unite with each other, we can start to undo the damage. There are some inspiring examples of successful campaigns against cuts and for increased support. What caused this? I wanted to know what had caused my son to be autistic. I wondered whether it was his birth, during which the cord wrapped around his neck, his APGAR score was 3/10, and he was whisked away into the pediatric intensive care unit. The GP said that it almost certainly wasn't. I have learned since then that we still do not know what causes autism, although scientists agree that there is an element of heredity. So yes, like you probably have, we thought about all the other members of our families.
I believe I know what it is, and it seems it's what we're born with. We're technically born with autism, and it comes from genes come from our sperm. So technically, we carry it our entire life. So technically, it's not a disease. It's something that we're born with, and it's a part of us. So technically, yes, it's neurological and in the brain.
Whisked away into the pediatric intensive care unit. The GP said that it almost certainly wasn't. I have learned since then that we still do not know what causes autism, although scientists agree that there is an element of heredity. So yes, like you probably have, we thought about all the other members of our families, including some long gone, who were probably autistic. But more importantly, we learned that although we would be interested to know what causes autism and what causes neurotypicality, we don't need to know that in order to do the best for our son. His rights, and the rights of my other autistic family members, do not depend on identifying a cause. Why would they? I know it is easy to be taken in by well-written articles that use scientific terminology and claim that anything from pesticides to vaccines cause autism. But please don't be taken in. And in particular, don't take reckless action on the basis of these claims, for instance by not having your children vaccinated. The evidence that vaccines cause autism has been thoroughly and utterly discredited.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that coincidence does not prove cause. An autistic child usually starts to show autistic traits at around the same age that they receive common vaccinations such as MMR. So some parents conclude that the vaccine caused the autism. But that does not follow logically. My son started showing autistic traits at around the time that he started going to a childminder. Does that mean that the childminder made him autistic? Of course not. And sure, private pharmaceutical companies have a financial interest in covering up flaws in their products. But the huge amount of scientific investigation into claims of vaccines causing autism would have uncovered that. It didn't. And now, it is the likes of anti-vaxxer Andrew Wakefield who are making money out of parents and their fears. What treatments should I use? I wanted to know what treatments and interventions were available. I saw adverts for something called Applied Behavioral Therapy, ABA, which looked interesting, although 40 hours a week seemed a bit intense. But before deciding on a treatment, we had to know a bit more about what autism is. If autism is not an illness, if it is not harmful, then why would it need to be treated? Our son, like most autistic kids, does some atypical things. Many of these are harmless, such as skipping and humming, and walking on his toes. There is no need to punish or suppress these because there is nothing wrong with them. Where treatments and therapies set out to discourage non-harmful autistic traits, then that seems to me like a throwback to the days when schools tried to force left-handed children to write with their right hands. We look back and that now is barbaric. I think that one day, we will look back on telling autistic people to, look at me when I am talking to you. In a similar way, forcing a child to do something that is against their nature and which they find distressing, for no good reason. But there are some autistic traits that are harmful, right? Perhaps your kid repeatedly bangs his head against the wall, or scratches herself until she bleeds, or is violent to other kids or to you. I think it is helpful to look at these things not solely as traits of autism, but as traits of autistic existence in a distressing world. Our experiences take place not in isolation within ourselves, but in interaction with our surroundings. If a person's brain wiring is such that the level of sensory input distresses them, or they do not understand what the person with a different brain wiring is trying to tell them, then the result can be very unpleasant. But it is the result not just of autism, but of the impact of the environment on an autistic person. I am not suggesting that the answer is always going to be as simple as turning down the lights, dressing in looser clothes, or communicating in pictures, although in some cases, this will be a big step forward. Rather, I am cautioning against therapies that are based on suppressing autistic traits and rewarding typical behaviors. And that brings me back to ABA. I looked into it, and I listened to autistic adults who had experienced it as children, and I found out that it is based on the same theories as the conversion therapy that aims to turn gay people straight. No thanks. I'm not against therapies. Both my son and I, and other autistic family members, have benefited from various therapies, including music therapy, speech and language therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy.
That's true.
But there are some out there that claim to help you but are very damaging. If you have a strong stomach, look up chelation, MMS, and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. These are pretty obviously cruel and abusive, but there are also others less obviously so.
My mom had thought about doing that, but luckily she had the money to do it back in 2005, 2006 at the time. She thought about it, but nope, but instead I got the other worst thing with ABA therapy, where I have midway hell. A miracle that I made it through it with no PTSD.
Not going to give you a long list of interventions to try and interventions to avoid. Instead, I just urge you to look around and think, and in particular to seek out the views of autistic people on their experiences. And I'd suggest that anything that claims to treat, or worse, cure, autism is best avoided.
That's true.
Autism itself cannot be treated or cured. It is probably your child's distress that you want to treat, not their autism. Perhaps the most helpful thing is to accept an autistic person for who they are, to help them live at ease in their world, not to try to remake them. Parents versus autistics. An increasing number of autistic people are speaking out against the way that society views autism.
Yeah, I'm still having that hard time with my mom. Yeah, there's some I deal with my mom on a daily basis.
Autism. They are asserting that autistic brain wiring is a naturally occurring neurological variant. They acknowledge that autistic people struggle in a society that does not meet their needs.
Mm-hmm.
They want support and rights and social change rather than to be pathologized or cured. Some
Right.
autistic adults are speaking out about experiences they had as children, which they feel alienated them, rejected them, traumatized them. Some of this involves criticizing things that their parents did, or even criticizing their parents.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve to be listened to, not dismissed.
Yeah, I have criticized my mom and my stepdad on stuff that they done to me. So yeah, I've been there, and I still deal with it on a daily basis.
Dismissed. When autistic activists raise issues like this, whether about their own experiences or in support of others, they are trying to ensure that autistic children do not have to go through the same distressing experiences that they did. They want to educate and help you. It is a mistake to label them as anti-parent or to dismiss their concerns as parent bashing. A few people do comment in intemperate terms and can come across as unduly hostile to parents.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what trauma does. It's not a constructive way forward, but it does not negate the important points that autistic people are making. In fact, one reason that it annoys me is that it obscures those points.
Exactly.
Of course I know you love your child. Of course you would never knowingly hurt them. That is true for all but a tiny minority of parents, and my default assumption is that this tiny minority does not include you. But when some parents say that they hate their child's autism, some autistic people will try to draw out the logic of that. I know that parenting autistic children is difficult. It can be really, really difficult. But it's difficult for the kids too, and when the likes of the Daily Mail publish articles on how terrible it is that a successful professional woman has had to take a career break because her autistic son is a monster, or when a parent videos their autistic child having a meltdown and posts it on social media, then I'm sure you can see how autistic people and their allies would see that as negative and unfair. That's where terms like martyr moms come from. I think it is an unhelpful and sexist term, but I get what it is getting at. Severe versus mild autism. Sadly, there are some people and organizations who encourage parents of autistic kids not to listen to autistic adults and to see autism as a curse or a tragedy or a form of brain damage, not as a naturally occurring neurological variant. They oppose the neurodiversity approach and want you to reject the idea of autism as neurological difference, as part of a neurologically diverse humanity. Some of them want to sell you products and exploit your fears.
Mm-hmm.
Others do not, and genuinely believe in what they are arguing.
And one that want to exploit your fear, we already called that person out for who he is.
Arguing. One of their key arguments is that adult autistic activists are only mildly autistic, are high functioning, and do not understand or speak for severely autistic people. I have used quote marks around these terms because they depend on an understanding of the autistic spectrum as being linear, a straight line scale from mild to severe. Autism isn't like that. Autistic people can function better than average in some areas of their lives and worse than average in others. Just because an autistic adult can argue their case on Twitter, that does not mean that they can live independently, or hold down a job, or leave their house, or speak. So they may well know what it is like to suffer great distress and to be unable to do things that they want to do. Moreover, some of the hardest working campaigners for the rights and interests of highly dependent autistic people are their so-called high-functioning fellow autistics. Severe autism is a problematic term because it can mean various things, perhaps that a person has an intellectual impairment or serious medical condition as well as being autistic. Perhaps that their sensory sensitivities are so different from the typical that they are in almost constant distress. Perhaps that their means of communication and interaction are so divergent from typical people's that those people think they cannot communicate or interact at all. Similarly, if we label some people low functioning, then their abilities get overlooked. And if we label others high functioning, then their needs get overlooked. It is probably more helpful to describe people in terms of their needs rather than the severity of their autism. You might not agree with me on this. That's fine. I'm not too hung up about words. But I am hung up about attempts to stop parents of autistic kids from listening to the views and testimonies of autistic adults. I wish I had known, or knowingly known. Some autistic adults when my sons were young, instead of only finding them when I found out that I was one of them. Their insight would have been so valuable. I might have known sooner why most autistic people dislike the terminology that they have autism and dislike the puzzle piece logo, and I might have known sooner that some organizations which claim to support autistic people actually demonize, pathologize, and in practice harm autistic people.
That's true.
The disabled people's movement has long held the slogan, "Nothing about us without yous." Autistic people demand this too. There is a great deal talked about autistic people, and relatively little attention to autistic people talking about themselves.
That's true.
So we write and we speak and we want to be listened to. Sometimes, we want our own autistic only, or neurodivergent only forums in order to facilitate this. That does not mean that autistic people are excluding parents, rather that they are including autistic people. There are plenty of other forums in which they can work together. The way forward. I wrote this because I think that parents and autistic people, and the many people who are both, can work together to fight for autistic rights, and I am shocked by the ferocity of efforts to turn parents against autistic advocates.
That's true.
Let's have parents and autistic activists, and the many people who are both campaigning alongside each other for positive demands that we can unite around and which will radically improve our lives. I hope that we can agree to support a reversal of savage government cuts to special educational needs and disabilities funding. Stronger legislation against discrimination against autistic people in the UK, for example,
And
adding
US.
neurological condition as a 10th protected characteristic under the Equality Act. Reopening of quality support services that have been forced to close by cuts and a big expansion of such services. Mandatory training for all education, health and other public service workers about autism.
That's true.
Freely available child and adult care that is appropriate to autistic needs and close to home. Universal design standards in the built environment to make it as accessible and non-distressing as possible. Suitable jobs for autistic people who can and want to work.
That's
Adequate
true.
benefits for those who don't. Properly regulating treatments and therapies. And bringing the pharmaceutical industry into public ownership and
That's
under
true.
public scrutiny. Just imagine if we could win all that together.
That's true. But yeah. We work towards it together. We make it a better future for the autism community. If we work on it. But we need to do it here in the US too. It's going to take a long time, but when we do, it will eventually be a big change. But yeah. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. And I'm really looking forward to the week. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.